Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. It is Labor Day 2019. Aiza and I are going to take a break from our labor, go to Omaha, and do some shopping. There's a place we can get Filipino food there, so it's worth the 60-mile drive. And we're on the interstate here, and I'm very comfortable with Aiza's driving. And that's the topic of the video today, is driving, a Filipino learning to drive in another country. So, hun, at what point did you decide that when you were here, you wanted to learn how to drive?
First, I want to be independent. I want to be independent where I could go somewhere else, not depending on Bob, with my friends or somebody else. Second is, I want to be able to go to work by myself, and without learning how to drive, I don't think I could be able to do that, and it's just so hard even to go buy some groceries, and then you have to call somebody, or you have to wait for your husband just to go to grocery shop, just to go to grocery. So I think learning how to drive is really important.
It's very practical. As she said, when Aiza got here, we started working at the same place, which we still do, but now our hours have changed, so that made it pretty difficult for me I would have to take her to work and pick her up, which would kind of be disruptive to me. So at that point, it made all the sense in the world that Aiza needed to learn how to drive. And of course, as her husband wanting to teach her, that was kind of an alarming experience, but it's necessary. I should say that driving here in the Midwest in Nebraska is quite a bit different than driving in the Philippines. So I think it took a lot of courage for you, hon, to learn to drive. But has there ever been a time you were afraid to get behind the wheel and drive around?
Yes, absolutely. Many times. I don't know if you remember that day when we went to Wahoo.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a traffic light. It was red, and then suddenly it was green, and then there was a big truck behind me. Not behind me, but next to me. And I look at it, I looked at the truck, and I started to freak out, and I just can't drive. What I did, I just stopped and turned my hazard light because I was so scared. So I think, and then it took me 2 years, actually, a year and a half to drive in an interstate, because I don't want to drive next to trucks.
Oh, I know.
But I realized I have to overcome those kind of fears, So I told Bob, I think we have to go drive to Omaha. Let me drive, and I want to be, kind of be used to next to or behind to trucks, those big trucks. And luckily, I overcome those fears.
Well, that's the thing about driving, is when you bring your Filipina anywhere to your country and she's never driven before. Aiza had not driven before. So it's all new experience. If I think back to when I started to drive, it was kind of nerve-wracking to me. I didn't go on the interstate nearly as fast as Aiza did. And, one of the things is just overcoming the fear of teaching your wife to drive. And, that's a whole topic for another video. But those of you that have had to do it know what I'm talking about. You're very concerned about her. You want to teach her right, but you don't want to, you're concerned about her safety. And it's just like teaching your kids to drive for the first time. But Aiza now, when she learned to drive, was 27 years old. And you might say, well, that's kind of old. But the problem is, when you have a few more years of maturity on you, you're probably going to be a little bit more attentive on the road and aware of the risks that can happen. And so yeah, you answered one of my questions was about having close calls, and but
Oh, many times.
now, and you really like the fact that you can just get out and go somewhere
Yeah.
without having to say, hubby, can we go somewhere?
No, not anymore.
Now, Aiza drives to work. She goes and she's taking my mom places. She will be taking me to the hospital and driving me home when I have to have my surgery. I think it's great. And when we got married, the first thing in my mind wasn't when is she going to learn how to drive. It really wasn't on my list, but she kind of moved it up, especially when the job changed, and she's really answered the bell to that. So, hon, now that you've been, I think, proficient at driving, what advice do you have for a Filipina who's never driven before about learning how to operate a motor vehicle, a car?
Get some motivation. First, get some motivation, because that's what I did. I was motivated to learn how to drive when Bob's mom was driving us, and I was behind. We were behind. Bob and I, we were behind in the back seat, and I was like watching my mother-in-law, and I was like, what if something happened to both of them? How would we be able to go to work, do some grocery, or some kind of stuff, some kind of driving stuff? So, and then who's gonna take care of for all of us? Who's gonna take? So I was like, I that was my motivation. It gives it gave me motivation to do that. I have to learn to drive. I really need to. And second, courage, of course. Gotta have some courage to learn how to drive. It's okay to be afraid, to get scared.
Absolutely.
But you gotta think about, the life ahead. Like those kind of scenarios, the life ahead, and then those kind of scenarios, like, okay, who's gonna take her? Who's gonna take me to work? Who's gonna take me just to buy groceries? Those kind of things that you gotta think about. Of course, prayers. You gotta pray all the time for your safety.
I certainly do. I certainly do for you, hon. Now, the Philippines, you never drove there. You're going to go there one day with about 7 years driving experience or so. Do you plan on driving in the Philippines?
Of course, I have to. Since I'm driving here, why not in the Philippines? I think it's a challenging.
Oh yeah.
It's a challenging part, Oh yeah, one more thing. Be patient.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It takes driving. It's not easy, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of practice. Time will come. It will click. And then just like my experience, never driven before. Never even just to hold the steering wheel. But now, I have those kind of, I got motivated, I have courage, and I'm patient enough to learn how to drive. And of course, prayers. Those are the things. Those are the four things that you gotta really have, in a driving part.
And I'll bet you're motivating, just by example, some of your friends who don't drive to want to drive, just like you do.
Actually, I've been telling them, I've been encouraging them to, hey, you gotta learn how to drive, because your husband, it's not all the time, it's not all the time there to take you to work, to take you somewhere else. You gotta learn how to drive.
starts to click. I've been preaching to Aiza from the start that you really haven't arrived as a driver until you can anticipate what's going on in front of you, beside you, and behind you. At the start, you're so concerned about, am I braking right? Am I backing up right? Am I going fast enough? Is the car straight? Is it in the right lane? Am I going to the right place? You know, am I too far ahead? Or, am I too close to somebody? But I think it really starts clicking for a driver. And there's a police officer there. I think so. Yeah, state trooper. When they can anticipate.
I'm driving 70 miles.
Yeah, when they can anticipate the dangers, because not everybody that drives here drives properly. There's people cutting in and out, and Aiza needs to be aware of that. Yeah, and she needs to be ready. Now, fortunately, the car that she bought, that she's paying for, has some really marvelous safety features. I'm still going to pray for her, though, but that really helps. So one last thing, hon, before I go, about driving is one thing you're not going to experience in the Philippines, and that's driving in snow and icy roads. What has been your experience with that?
With the snow?
Snow, icy roads, ice under the snow that you can't see.
The very first time, that's crazy. I was scared, but right now, I kind of comfortable driving with it, because I've been driving by myself for the last 2 years. So yeah, of course I get scared, but I'm fine now.
Tell me you drive slower in the snow.
I do.
Okay.
It takes even 15 minutes more just to get to work. So I have to leave early. And just drive so slow, very defensively.
There you go. That's the thing. You drive offensively and defensively, and then it starts to come together. So until the next video, I appreciate Hun telling us about your driving experience. I know I'm very proud of you. And that's all for now here on Labor Day on Love Beyond the Sea.